It's your host Kevin, and Terrence. He should be here shortly, but until then, I'm just going to talk about some of the things I've got going on and how I've been keeping productive to pass time during these layoffs. So layoffs are traumatic for everybody, but that doesn't mean that you should just sit around moping, being depressed, or being down. You have to find a way to maintain your productivity. And one of the things I've really been doing is focusing on the Coder Conversations website. So if you go to coderconvos.com, you'll see, you can watch all the latest episodes. You can sign up for the newsletter, and we're going to continue to add features. We also have a message board, but that's not ready to be unveiled just yet, and we're still working on the login functionality. But something I realized is that you have to start building outside of your current job, because if you don't, once you get let go, you're gonna have nothing to show for it other than the little bit of money that you earned. So um, that's really what I've been focusing on, is getting the Coder Conversations website going. I want to start developing these alternative sources of income, because otherwise, you just get laid off, and then you're screwed. And as you can see, the tech industry is very, very unstable. And that's something that a lot of people aren't telling you if you wanted to jump in. I'm not here to discourage you, but I'm here to give you the reality of what's going on. You know, the company I work for, their stock was increasing. They just signed a massive deal, but yet there were still layoffs. I still got laid off. So, there's no real way to predict these layoffs. Usually, if you hear mergers and acquisitions, though, that means somebody's getting laid off. But all the advice that I've been giving you guys, I've been applying it, and it's been helping me in this challenging economy. I stay visible on LinkedIn. I'm doing things outside of work. All of that helps. All of that helps, in an economy like this where it's extremely difficult to find a job. Let's see. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's see. Hey, how's it going, Alicia? Yeah, no, I got laid off from Broadcom. Yeah, I mean, I was working at Caliber last year, but fortunately, I was able to leave before they started laying everybody off. And then, I was here at Broadcom for about a year, and yeah, I got caught in these layoffs. So now I'm kind of in between jobs. But yeah, I appreciate you for tuning in. How have you been doing, Alicia? So, yeah, Terrence, he should be here in a little bit, but yeah, until then. So, some of the other things I got going on, I'm working on an application with my friends. It's an Amazon app. It helps sellers on Amazon determine which products are profitable. I got that going on. I have the Coda Combos website. I'm starting to get into merchandise. Um, Hold up, give me 1 second, guys. We have a guest that's about to come on. Hey, what's going on, Jonathan?
Hey,
See
Kevin,
you.
how are you?
I'm doing well. How you been doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. It's good to hear from you too.
Oh man, glad to have you on. It's been a while, man. What's been new with you?
Man, I mean, the topic of layoffs, right? It's real relevant. I was laid off just 3 months ago, so I fully understand. I know the grind's rough right now. But yeah, I think I was laid off 3 months ago. I was interviewing nonstop, and one of the companies I interviewed with called Alchemy Labs. They extended me an offer, and so I started with them in July, and then I briefly did like a contract to like try to hold me over, in between the two gigs. But yeah, at the moment I'm kind of just in that holding pattern, trying to keep the funds I got from the contract, and then I'm just waiting to start my new full time gig. But yeah.
Are you back in the gaming industry, or are you doing something kind of different until then?
Yeah, so Alchemy Labs they make VR games, and I think their big one is Job Simulator. And so I'm going to be helping them make whatever is next, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, Alicia, to answer your question, I do build websites. So yeah, if you need something built, just let me know. But yeah, man, was there any signs before you got laid off from your current job, or did that just kind of happen out of nowhere?
Right. I'm kind of 50-50, right? Because I think I've been through enough layoffs that like the temperature started to feel a little familiar, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, things are less organized than they usually are. Or I noticed, before we'd have these big company wide meetings, we're doing X, Y, and Z, we're doing all these big initiatives, and then those meetings kind of dried up, and we're not talking much about what the future looks like. And so small stuff, but stuff that's like, well, I mean, it's a business, there's things happen constantly, right? There are just times where like things aren't moving as quickly, and there's times where lots of stuff is happening. So just small stuff. I was like, that feels a little bit funny, but we'll see. And then the actual layoff itself, that blindsided me. Like I was, yeah,
Yeah,
I was not expected it that morning. And yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, I know what you mean, man. There's always like the little signs, but
Right. Right.
you don't want to believe it until it happens. But at my last job, it was so obvious I couldn't ignore it. Like all the higher ups were leaving, and
Mm-hmm.
mergers and acquisitions.
Right.
But with this one, I didn't expect it because like the stock was doing so good, and
Right.
but I guess if they don't have funding for the project and they don't, they just don't have it. So
Right. Right.
how
Absolutely.
did you keep yourself occupied after the layoff?
Yeah. Right. Well, there. I mean, I had to like play as many games as I could for a minute, right? Like I did have to just because that's my like way to decompress. So I played a lot of games. But I also like I kind of almost immediately like, and I'd had some feelings about my job anyway, so I was updating like my portfolio, my resume, and just kind of like updating my online presence. And then when it happened, it was kind of like thankfully everything was updated, and it was just kind of sitting in my resume to any and everyone who might look at it. Just trying to find as many job openings and listings as I could. Interviewing, I interviewed nonstop, which it can be challenging, but I just needed to find something. And yeah. um, so yeah, lots of games and lots of interviews. That was yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, man.
Mhm.
Been doing a little bit of gaming myself, Call of Duty and
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy 16. Hey, what's going on, Terrence?
I'm excited.
But yeah, you do you have a PS5, Jonathan?
Yeah, and
Oh,
I'm excited for 9 o'clock tonight. I think Final Fantasy
oh,
16
okay.
gets live, so I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
Did you try the demo, or did you just are you just gonna kind of wait to play it?
I wasn't even gonna I wasn't it wasn't even really on my radar, and then a friend told me about the demo, and I was like, okay, all right, I got to give it a shot. And then I played it, and it snatched my attention. And so yeah, after the demo I was sold. I was like, okay, I don't think I've been as in love with Final Fantasy in a long time, but after playing that demo I was like, okay, I'm into this. Like this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of bringing it back. Like the
Mhm.
past few been kind of disappointing, but
Mhm,
after
mhm,
playing that demo, man,
mhm,
it's
mhm,
probably the best demo I've played like
mhm.
maybe ever.
I agree. I agree.
And
Mhm.
Terrence doesn't have his PS5 yet, so he's gonna be on the waiting list. He's a PC gamer.
Yeah, for sure. PC Master Race and all that. Yeah.
Hey, Terrence, you're on mute.
Okay, my bad. You
There
guys
we
hear me?
go.
Yeah. So it's not about the PC Master Race. I won't like. Like I'm not like, oh, I want to play it at 4K, on my 4090 or whatever. Like I'm not about that life. I don't have the drive to go out and spend a couple grand on a graphics card. But it's just I find it convenient right now. Like I was down with like buying every console and
Yeah.
getting the exclusives, but like after I got my nephew a PS5 like a couple years ago when it was lockdown and I played it and I played Spider-Man on it. It was cool, but ever since then, like that itch to play a PS5 or like have one, just I don't have that same itch for it. And like whenever I see games come out for PS5, I'm like, okay, I'll wait for it to come out on PC. If it comes out on PC, like I'm still waiting for like I waited for Returnal. Okay, boom, that dropped. I waited for Ratchet and Clank is coming out in July. Like and then any like I don't condone piracy, but like any other Ratchet and Clank or something else that I want to play, I could play it on PC at like 4K or whatever. Um, but there are AAA titles that I'm just like, okay, that would be nice on PC. Like God of War was excellent. Like my first playthrough of God of War was great. Like from start to finish, I cried. It was a great game. I'm waiting for Ragnarok, and yeah, the long and short of it, yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is gonna come out. I won't be on the I'll be on the waiting list for when it drops. I'm just gonna try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, and if I really feel the itch, I'll watch a playthrough online. But I don't know. Like it's how do you not to steal the spotlight. But like, how do you guys feel about like playthroughs or walkthroughs or like do you guys like are you guys for it? Are you against it? How do you guys feel about it?
Man, I mean, if I don't plan on playing the game, I'll watch it ahead of time, but
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil myself.
Yeah, yeah. I feel I'm the same, and I watch games like I know I'm not gonna play because there's only so many hours in a day, right? And
right.
like game might have a really dope story, but it's like I'm not playing that, and
Mhm.
so then I'll watch a playthrough, especially like late night or during work. Like I think that's my kind of top times to watch those.
Have you been playing D4? Not me. No, I know that's a big time sink kind of game.
Diablo 4.
Mhm.
Like I've seen people play Diablo. I haven't really been big into Diablo. I think that's a really niche type of title. Uh yeah, I'm in the same boat as Kevin. Like I just never got pulled into those type of games. And I know that they're really big time sinks or like not time. I don't want to say time sinks, but they're the kind of games where that you have to get to a certain point for things to get really good. Or at least so I've heard. Like, oh, after hour 30 or after hour 40, it gets really good. And I'm just like, that's a commitment. Like,
Yeah, yeah, them games like you got to be dedicated to really get ahead. Kind of like World of Warcraft. People be like losing their marriages because they just play that nonstop.
Mhm.
yeah, I think a lot of games, and I think we're heading in a direction. I think of like monetization in gaming right now, like how games are now versus like back then. Like back then, I could buy a cartridge or I could buy a CD, and that's the whole game.
Right.
Maybe in the future they would what's the word like silently patch out certain things. Like oh, if you bought the black version of the game or the green label version of the game, it would be slightly different maybe. But like I just think that nowadays a lot of games are not, that have that they have that games as a service type of feel where you're buying like a platform and then they just sort of spoon feed you content as the service continues on. And I feel like the point I'm trying to make is that games come incomplete now, and
Yeah,
you have to get to a certain point where a lot of the DLC is out, and then the game improves and all the bugs are fixed, and then it becomes a solid experience versus just getting a solid experience from the start and then getting solid DLC afterwards. Uh, Jonathan, because you work in the gaming industry, like uh how do you feel about releasing a product that's half finished? or at least for the consumer, it might not be the final vision of the product. How do you feel?
Yeah, right. It's frustrating, right? Like it's frustrating, right? Because and the reality is, I think the call isn't usually on us, right? Usually the call is someone who got paid way more than we do, who is way removed from the game development process, who isn't that interested in games. We're like, yeah, so we're gonna drop on April 4th, and the rest of us go, well, it's February, and that feels a little aggressive. And they're like, well, I don't know, the contract I signed said April 4th, so you got to figure it out,
Yeah,
right? And so it could be a bummer to be on that end and have to like release something isn't the game as it's intended. And that's why so many games come with the day one patches, right? That's like the way
yeah,
to try to save it, because even if you think about how many games are broken with the day one patch, and imagine like by the time that, like, without the day one patch, it was ultra broken, right?
yeah,
And so yeah, it's not a great look. And as a gamer, I hate it personally, right? Because I totally agree with you, right? I paid you the $60 or $70 today. I deserve the full complete experience at launch, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, man, and it's crazy. Games are like really expensive now. It's like
Yeah.
$70 for the base edition. Then they got the
Yeah.
digital, deluxe edition is like $90. I'm like, wow.
Right. Right. hmm Yeah, which is which is I just wish, kind of to your point, Terrence. I just wish, if I'm it's not the end of the world to me. Games cost $70, right? I think they've hovered around 60 for a while, but I just think that then our expectations for what a day one release should be like higher as fans. Like, we deserve more higher quality day one experiences if you want to tack on a higher price tag, right?
Exactly. I made a controversial statement on a message board earlier today. I said 2023 might be the best year for gaming. What do y'all think? So we got
uh
Street Fighter 6, Armor Core,
Mhm,
Diablo
so
4.
mhm.
as far as like bangers, I feel like there are really like solid hits, right? We've got like
Right.
Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, whatever the Jedi Fallen Survivor. I don't know the title.
Yeah,
You know what
Jedi
I'm talking about?
Survivor. Yeah,
Yeah, one of the
yeah,
Fallens.
yeah.
We got Star Wars. We've got Final Fantasy. We've got
Zelda,
Zelda,
Zelda.
Tears of the
Yeah.
Kingdom.
hmm
Um, shoot, what else?
Super Mario RPG, I
Yeah,
think.
I'm
is that
so excited
this?
for that.
Is that this year?
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think
Like
they said
November.
yeah, November, October, somewhere in there. I think you're right, November.
Yeah, so I mean, there's that, right? Nintendo's got bangers, Sony's got bangers. Star Citizen
Starfield.
dropping, Starfield. There we go. Like
Yeah.
that's dropping. I
hmm
think it's a really good year. I think it's a
Yeah.
really solid year for gamers.
Yeah.
Is it the best year? I don't know. I don't really memorize when years,
hmm
like you know, to me, yesterday PS1 just came out, and you had Final Fantasy 7, and now tomorrow we've got Final Fantasy 16. So everything's a blur at us after a certain point.
That's
Right.
crazy.
But
They released 9 since then.
Isn't it?
Mainline entries.
Right. Crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I actually, I think I would agree with you, Kevin. Yeah, I think it, and it's because it's funny, because I think the way you year started off, we had Redfall, we had Gollum, right? I feel like there's something else that just came out and was a trash fire,
flop.
right?
Yeah,
Right. And so Zelda, I was like, okay, this is good. I felt like that saved kind of a wave we were hitting, and saw the Starfield preview, which looks amazing. This Final Fantasy 16 demo, like, I'm super excited to play 16. I think it's going to be one of my favorites in the series. Just after playing that demo, right? And then, yeah, to your point, right? Armored Core, all the other stuff. Yeah, I hear amazing stuff about Diablo. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the best years I can remember. I think the last year, to me, the best year of games I can remember was, I think there was a year Metal Gear Solid 3 came out. I think it was Metroid Prime 2, and I think it was Halo 2. And like, to me,
Mhm.
that's like, that was a year of games that I absolutely loved. But this is I think this is one for the record books. Like, I'm really excited.
Yeah, this one's competitive. With
hmm
Zelda,
hmm
Diablo, what else was there? Final Fantasy. It's
hmm
just so many good games, man.
Dead Space
Mortal
dropping
Kombat.
too.
Oh, Mortal Kombat, yeah, and Street Fighter 6, yeah, which is
Street
amazing.
Fighter Six.
Dead
Mhm.
Space
There's
dropped.
Oh,
yeah,
Dead
Dead
Space.
Space.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hollow Knight might come out this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about that. We'll see. See, like I'm all for more Hollow Knight. Don't get me wrong. Like, but I don't want to pressure those devs. Like
Sure.
after seeing the first one and how well it was, like I came at the tail end where you buy it for like a cheap price and you get all the DLC and everything. But like the Hollow Knight is such a great game, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't want that game to come out in a state where it's just like you have to have a press release, the image that says "Sorry, guys, we're working on a day 30 patch or whatever."
Yeah.
Right.
Take your time. Like if you have to push that game back, like please, by all means, like push it back. Just wait.
Right.
But Terrence, can you see yourself working in the game industry?
No,
Because he's sane. That's why.
I couldn't, like, do I love gaming? Yeah, but do I want to? Like, I wouldn't want to. I love gaming as a hobby, as a way to when I'm done with work, like it's separate from
Yeah.
from my actual day to day work. If I had to combine the two, I
Yeah.
feel like it would just make my love of gaming like just I would just lose it. I would lose my love of gaming. I feel or I could easily, how do I say it? I don't know if you feel this way, Kevin, but like, do you ever go to a website now and you're like, why would they do that? Why would they design? Why would they design this way? Like, this doesn't make sense, or this
Mm,
doesn't feel right. Like, do you ever experience that?
yeah, like well, like what kind of why did they do it like that? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mhm.
like so, like even what was it? I was on HBO when HBO Max just redesigned their branding to just say Max and
Mhm.
everything, and they
Hmm.
released a new version of their video app, and so I'm on it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, oh, what is it? Like, it was a trailer of Avatar playing. I was like, oh, the button, the icon when you hover over it, like it's a timer thing. And I started explaining it. My mom is just like, okay, I guess, like you're just being a nerd, but it's because I've seen so many galleries that like now when I look at an app, like when they do something like a little bit different, it's like it stands out to me. Like I notice it as a developer, right?
Yeah.
But I think if I was to step into video game dev,
Mhm.
I would just start to think like I would have
Like
to
deconstruct the games and
I would have
stuff.
to yeah, I would like break it down, but oh, why'd they do this way? Like this is so unintuitive, or I feel like it would taint uh, if I saw how the sausage was made, I would not enjoy the sausage.
Right.
If that makes the most sense,
Yeah.
like I don't want to see how the sausage is made. Just just hand me a controller and let me press buttons and pretty stuff happens and
Right.
that's it.
Does being like behind the scenes and seeing how some of this stuff is accomplished, does that ever ruin things for you, Jonathan?
It kind of. So you're totally spot on, right? I definitely have undressed games before, right? And especially I feel like it's almost a quality level thing, right? I think there's games that I'm like, I know I could make this versus like, I'm 170 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, right? And every the time I play, like I learn something new about the game or I see something new and it just blows my mind over and over again about how much details gone into it, right? And I think I would say the same thing about Street Fighter Six. There's so many really awesome game design decisions made there. Even Final Fantasy, like kind of to your point, Kevin, right? It feels like in a lot of ways it's taken some of the old things we love and it's taken some new things and it's putting it together to make something really spectacular. And so that stuff makes me fall in love with games all over again, right? Because it turns me back. I always think back to like 10-year-old me who on a Saturday morning, first thing I did when I got up would be to plop on the floor and camp out in front of the TV if I didn't have to clean up, if my mama wasn't going to make us clean up the house that day or something, right? But so like when games do that to me, like, it's a really awesome and magical experience. But then there are the moments where I'm like, I play something, I'm like, oh, I don't know why we chose that choice, right? Or this could have worked better here, or and maybe it's a little bit more bid, but I think there's games like Gollum, which I like watched those, and I watch playthroughs for those type of games, and I'm like, I I don't even know where you started to think about making this game, right? The decisions that happened here are like, and I'm sure the equivalent is like a really horrible website you two have seen. Like, why did you even think to make this, right? Let alone actually spend the money and time to actually build this out this way. So yeah, but yeah, it can be rough. It can be rough to like see how the sausage is made. But I also think like it kind of makes those like really impressive like games. It makes them stand out even more. Which I'm sure when you two see like a really a website that's doing something really crazy, I'm sure it probably does the same thing for you, right? It's like, oh wow,
Like what's
Yeah, exactly. Like it it enhances. Like if somebody's doing something really good, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Like, how did they do that? But
right,
if it sucks, it's like, man, what are they doing?
right.
yeah.
So, like, what are some gameplay mechanics y'all have seen like recently that kind of stood out? Or
Um. So recently, like I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter Six, like
Mhm.
trying to get back into the competitive scene, and like there's always a mix of like how do you make combos like how do you make a fighting game system like intuitive and easy but also complex at the same time.
Mhm.
And what Capcom has done recently with Street Fighter 6, I really like their design decisions of like how you manage your meter and how you manage life, I think maybe in Street Fighter 5, or maybe I know for sure in Street Fighter 4, big body characters like Zangief, and smaller characters like Cammy and Chun Li, they had different life, right? So like Zangief had, let's say, 10,000 health, and like Cammy
Mhm.
had 950 or whatever, like, and that 50 damage like makes a difference. Like
Mhm.
it like in the meta, like as the game progresses, it makes a difference. Well, in Street Fighter 6, the decision to universally give everybody the same health feels better, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it feels, I don't have to worry about an extra 50 damage because everybody across the board has the same amount of health.
Mhm.
And then giving everybody access to things like a parry, and introducing things like perfect parrying, it just gives a simple mechanic depth overall across the board. And I don't know. To me, it feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels really good. It feels really good.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess to piggyback off that, right? Like I'm trash at fighting games. Like honestly, I love them. I'm just not good at them. And so I was already excited after playing the Street Fighter 6 demo because they had the open world mode. And what I really enjoyed is like how it's slowly teaching me kind of advanced gameplay stuff that I'm like way above my head, right?
Yeah.
I don't do anything with frames or anything like that, but it's just small like things. Even the point I'm at, I think I just met Chun Li, and um, like I guess they're trying to teach me basically there's a good time to hit somebody to stun them, and like they flash white at a specific time, and so like after they do a move, I'll hit them, and then at that time, if I hit them, they're all of a sudden stunned, and just kind of starting to put that together with like, oh, okay, and then if I combo that, if I put that with a throw. Oh, okay. I lit up this NPC, this computer, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, Terrence would destroy me with his hand behind his back if we played, right? But at least I was able to give the computer some work, and that was it
Yeah.
was fun, right? So I like feel at least for a little while I was good at a fighting game.
You know what? Like that, and is that brings another point to my mind, and I'm going to mention it, and I'm going to keep this point brief. That makes me feel good
Yeah.
because, like, don't get me wrong, like the earlier fighting games, like as true as they are and arcade perfect and stuff like that, like for the hardcore scene, what they've done with Street Fighter Six. And I'm not trying to make this podcast just about Street Fighter Six. It's just a game that I've recently been playing a lot of.
Right.
They've made a really solid experience for beginners and novices that want to just enjoy a game that they can sit down and play,
Mhm.
right? And the fact that I'm hearing this from somebody that I've never talked fighting games before, but that you're talking about it in a sense of like, hey, they flash white. That means I can do this.
Mhm.
So the like the neurons firing off in your brain is like, oh my gosh, he gets it. Like
Right.
like in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you can do this and you can do that, but you're just simply just like bread, peanut butter, jelly, put it together, boom. Like, but me, I'm over here like, all right, salami,
Mhm.
ham, fry this up, add an egg, do this, toast the bread, add the butter. Like
Mhm.
I'm over here, 100 steps ahead, and you're just like A, B, C, boom, done. And
Right.
the fact that you're getting that concept with a single player mode that they've made or they introduced into
Mhm.
a fighting game is really great. It's
Mhm.
awesome,
Mhm.
and it reminded me of another point where I was playing offline with somebody, and they were configuring their controllers, the control scheme to add to turn on accessibility. I don't know if you've noticed this, but in this game versus other games, in order to do certain special moves, uh, they've added accessibility where instead of inputting this like complex motion, you
Mhm.
can just hold down one button and then press another button,
Mhm.
and it'll give you access to those tools.
Yeah.
And I didn't consider it until now, where it's like, okay, what if somebody had a condition where it makes it difficult for them to input complex motions? Like, how do you simplify that for people to make it accessible for everybody? And just seeing that in use, like in person, was like, wow, like I never considered that, like as a gamer, and I feel like we're going into an accessibility route,
Mhm.
but like uh as somebody who's able, right, for the
Right.
most part, like I don't consider those options when I'm
Mhm.
gaming. I just fire it up and I'm off to the races.
Right.
But do you guys ever consider accessibility features in games, one as a developer and two as just a gamer in general?
I haven't thought about it too much, because a lot of times if it doesn't affect you, you don't really consider it. But
Yeah,
I know, it's good to think about that so
right.
people are able to. But I know, Jonathan. I know you have to definitely consider it, considering you're actually releasing games to the public.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I think it's a conversation that's growing more as people like and just as game developers like start to really as game developers start to change and become more diverse. Like I think it makes for people who have more diverse perspectives, right? Having been around, like I've met blind gamers, right? I've met people who don't really have much vision, and they who had to who you know small things like just having a game increase the text size can be super valuable, right? They might be legally blind and can't drive, but just small conveniences make it possible for them to play a game they really love. Or um, Forza actually this year they won an award at the Game Awards for
Really?
their whole single player has like a sign, like they signed the whole basically the whole storyline. Like there's like a little person that pops up in the corner and they like sign kind of like a live version of the story points and stuff, right? So somebody um who is deaf, they can follow along with what the plot details are and everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then probably the most significant thing I think I saw was like I've gone to a few during GDC. Microsoft holds a lot of kind of accessibility parties, and they put on this video one day, kind of discussing this guy who he didn't have much motion in his hands, and he was kind of I wouldn't say he's quadriplegic, but he just didn't have much motion in his body, and so he had an adaptive controller, um, and just seeing this person who like really couldn't move his hand much, but I think he could move his fingers, being able to play a game because they have these special controllers for him, like that type of stuff, like it really touched my heart because like kind of you being able to have control of controllers and feeling like I was born with a controller in my hand. There's so many things I can do with games, but um, I think it really is important. I think the thing I think we all love about video games is kind of we for a second we get to be someone who's not us, and I think that even goes to if you're uh, kind of if you have accessibility issues with your body, I'm sure being able to run around Hyrule and fly with a hang glider, or being able to be Chun Li and flip upside down and do a spin kick at people, right? Like how far removed is that from your real life experience, right? And so yeah, I think accessibility is super important, and definitely one of the things I'm excited about at Alchemy Labs is they do a lot of work in kind of the accessibility phase for games, and I'm really excited to learn and kind of do more work in that space, because I believe games are for everybody truly, and so
Awesome.
yeah.
So recently they had the Nintendo Direct show, and they released they have a game with Peach as the main star. So I mean, I think that's pretty interesting because normally, it's the guy saving the girl. So I wonder what kind of spin they're gonna take on this.
Yeah.
Like, have y'all like really talked to women who are into games, and do they feel like underrepresented? Like there's not that
Hmm.
many.
uh,
I
yeah, oh yeah, go, you can feel free to go for sure.
I mean, like I've had I've had I have a girlfriend who's a gamer. Not hardcore in the sense of like competitive. Um, as far as representation, I don't think she ever complains that Kirby isn't a girl. I mean, um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have an experience in this area as far as like representation. And do you mean like as female protagonists
Yeah, like
or?
more so like protagonists. They're able to see somebody that kind of represents them as they play the game.
Hmm.
Because imagine if it was reversed, like you turned on Street Fighter and 95% of the characters were female, or you know what I mean. You and it's like that in game after game after game, where almost all the characters are females. Like, would that drive you off, or do you think you would still be like as into gaming?
Uh, I mean, for me, Samus is a girl, right? I'm not complaining that Samus has always been a girl to me. Like if
Right.
they change him, if they change the main character of Metroid to be a guy, like I would be confused. Like, okay, why? Like, but if they want to go in a different direction, if it's a different universe or what have you, like, okay, sure. Like, I have no the gender of a character doesn't really matter to me. Like, if the story is good, like if Kratos was suddenly a girl, it would be weird. Like, I'd have questions. But if they can make the story make sense, if it again if it's an alternate universe or what have you, like okay, by all means, enjoy it. But I just feel like at the end of the day, what matters most is to have a solid story. Like, is the story compelling? Like, does it pull me in? Does it make me want to sit down and play more? Because that's what I play the games for. Like that's what matters most to me. And I'm not trying to hog the mic, but to me, like it comes down to the characters and the storytelling. The whole reason of me sitting down and enjoying and turning on this game is to experience, is to have an experience, is to experience something like the Yakuza games. Like I'm sitting down and I'm experiencing something. The Tears of the Kingdom, like I gotta save the princess. Like Kirby, I gotta eat stuff. Like like
Right.
for me, that's why I play the games. Like I want to experience something, and if the experience is worth it, like then I'm all for it. Like that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
Hey, how's it going, Lou? But yeah, I think we do need like more representation, but I don't like forced representation. Like a lot of people are getting mad because Final Fantasy 16 was almost all white, but that's it's medieval, kind of like medieval Europe.
Mm,
I don't feel like we should force diversity, but it should be in there where it makes sense, so other people can kind of you know honestly, you kind of feel something when somebody looks more like you, or you can
Yeah.
identify with that character to an extent.
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with both of you, right? And I think I know quite a few, right, female gamers from my little sister to, or women gamers from my little sister to my girlfriend. She's, again, she's not a hardcore one. She plays like Among Us and Clash Royale, so more mobile games and stuff. And she'll play stuff on my Switch with me every once in a while. Um, uh, but yeah, it's I think I think it's I think it first of all, I think it's a hard conversation for us to have as men, right? It's a little different our perspective,
Right.
Mm.
but I do think I've heard, I feel like what I've generally heard is like representation for women in games is getting better, but there's, it's always there's still a long way to go, right? I think, games like Peach are a good start, but I think it is important to keep in mind, the likes of Samus, right? Like Samus was like super mind blowing at the time. Like
Yeah.
I think the whole point of Metroid, like I don't think you find out Samus is a woman until the final, right before the final credits roll, right?
Mhm.
And how pivotal, right, and how big that was at the time, right? Um, and going from Mario having saved Princess Peach forever to the Mario movie comes out and Princess Peach is kind of her own, doing her own thing for the movie, and she's like basically an action star herself, and now she gets her own movie. That's awesome. But yeah, I think that I have heard from women, like, there's definitely a hope for more representation, and I guess kind of more. I think it's been less. I've heard like they want more representation. It's kind of like less sexualization, right? Like I
Yeah.
think, back in the day, fighting games. I think it was like impossible to have like a female character who wasn't half naked, like in most of the games, right?
Yeah.
And then just over time, I think, like you have so many characters, and some of them can be more lewd, right? Like I love Melina in Mortal Kombat. She's one of my favorites. She's always been kind of more risque. But then you have other characters who are more like suited and booted, and they are more like they have a full outfit and a full style to them.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's kind of a nuanced topic, right? But I think it's important, and I think I have heard that a lot of women do feel more represented now than they used to.
Yeah, I think just being able to have that visual identity of seeing somebody that
Yeah,
is what you represent, it kind
Yeah.
of draws you in a little more.
That
yeah,
looks
I
like
think
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we kind of take it for granted to a certain extent because
Mhm.
we're men, and it's like
Right.
almost like the accessibility discussion we just
Right.
had.
Right. Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like the controller fits right in our hand, and we're good to go. But
Yeah.
somebody might not have that, so it's like we're
Yeah,
not thinking about it.
yeah.
But you know what though? Like something that comes to mind. It's not. It's a little derivative of the whole like representation idea. So like when I don't know if you guys if you guys keep up with comics and things like that, but like when Miles Morales first came out, they
Mhm.
were like, "Oh, Spider-Man's black now." Like,
Mhm, mhm.
there was some backlash behind that,
Yeah,
and I don't know all the deep lore. I'm not going to speak on it just because I don't know the ins and outs. I just know that there was some pushback on it.
Right.
The same as when um, what is it? They released Silk Spider and she's Asian, and then so you have Spider Gwen, and it was
Mhm,
just like they all these derivatives of Spider Man. But then something that comes to mind is like when Stan Lee was talking about Spider Man, it's like, why does he wear a mask? It's like, well, because the mask is represent that anybody can be Spider Man.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
like it's not the person under the mask; it's the person doing the actions. And I'm
Right.
I'm butchering the quote, and I
Mhm,
apologize to
mhm,
Stan Lee, but like uh, what comes to mind so much is like was badass,
mhm.
from 1 and 2 until the end of 2, and well, not until the end of 2, but you don't see the person behind the mask.
Mhm.
You're turning into a morph ball. You're shooting
Right.
aliens. You're defeating Chozo. You're doing all this badass stuff, and then at the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a girl.
Mhm,
Like, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Samus has a ton of games. Metroid
mhm,
Dread was a great game.
mhm.
I'm sure Metroid Prime 4, when it drops, it's gonna do gangbusters.
Right.
Um, like the the point I'm trying to make is like I think when you have a strong character, regardless of whether they're black, white, Asian, blue, brown, It's just the fact that they are a strong character and they have core values that they stand up for,
Mhm.
and that and that's what that's what your game should stand on.
Right.
Uh, the fact that they are, their race or their gender, uh, uh, should come second. But I think that representation does matter. Like you said, to a degree, like everybody should feel like they can connect with a character, um, at one point or another.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like even the creator character options in a lot of games are getting better. Like
Yeah.
before there was no black options. Now they give you like an
Mhm.
afro
Right.
and some dreads or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Street Fighter Six does really good with that.
Mhm.
They've got so much character customization
Mhm.
it's ridiculous. Like you've got afros, you've got obviously bald people, like
Mhm.
so many different eye options. I think not Dark Souls, but From Software does that. Elden
Mhm.
Ring has like a crazy customization,
Mhm.
make your character look like a bunch of different things, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, it's so deep now. You can spend hours
Mhm.
in create a character, just dressing up your character as whatever.
John, do you find like game developers are kind of using like these creator character things to develop the characters versus like trying to custom create them from scratch, or how's a lot of these characters being created nowadays?
Yeah, I think it kind of it. I think it depends on the kind of game, right? Like I think I'm a big Saints Row fan, and so a game like Saints Row, where it's kind of always been about you being this character, kind of inserted into this larger world, and basically taking over all everybody else's territory. That's a whole different kind of motivation versus, I think about Tomb Raider, right? Where Lara Croft is a very specific person, right? Who's adventurous and she's kind of danger is her thing, right? And she also finds herself in these really perilous positions. Um, I think it all kind of comes down to like really what you want people to feel when they play your game, um, and even to kind of similar to your point, Terrence, I think Shigeru Miyamoto, who made Mario and Zelda, I think they asked him back in the day, like, how come Link doesn't speak? And that was his statement at the time too. He's like, Link is you, right? Like Link is not his own character. Like, and even though Link has qualities, like really when it comes down to it, like all the adventures you go on, all the stories you have, all the things you accomplish, all the monsters you beat, that was you doing it, right? Link is a stand-in for who you are.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think it kind of comes down to what you want from a character, right? Like, um I think it's Clyde in Final Fantasy 16. I think that's the main dude's name, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think I'm excited to see his story, right? Like, and the demo kind of set up like who he is and what he is in the world and his relationship with his family and all that stuff. And I'm excited to go on his journey versus like Saints Row, where it's like, oh, I'm about to take over the city. This is me, right? And so I think it's kind of it depends on the usually for in when you're working on a game, it kind of that's like a conversation, like who is the player? Like that's something you talk about at the very beginning. Yeah.
So like when typically developing these games, like do y'all completely like plan everything out before you start coding, or is it kind of like plan some out, start coding, plan some more out, start do more coding?
Yeah. It's a lot more the second one because I think you can have a million ideas and plans and ideas of how something should work, but you really don't know how it works until you kind of, get some of it together and then you play it and it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right, or this feels really good. Like we should do more of this, or you're kind of exploring what the game is, what the character is, what the gameplay should be, and just kind of trying to marry it together to try to make the best experience possible. So a lot of times it's like we do a little, we plan a little, we do a little, we see what worked, we plan a little more, and then just kind of trying to flesh that out. And that's what play testing and all that stuff's for, right? Just kind of helping us figure out, okay, is this conveying what we want it to? And if not, then we have to go back to the drawing board. Okay, what are we getting wrong?
How do you guys, well, as a developer, how do you go about playtesting uh, a game? Like, you don't personally playtest your own games, or is it somebody who's just like a dedicated playtester?
Right. So I guess there's three different kind of testing. So like for me, right, like I when I program games, like I at least do like a basic like this works as intended as the designer explained it to
Right.
me test, right? Like so that's like the first level of testing. Then we have like a QA team and they go and I would almost say they bang on the experience or the game and kind of
Right.
they kind of check the game for any issues and whatever technical thoughts or there's this really weird bug where if I push the attack button I pause and then I start the game, like there's an infinite attack that's happening and like the character never has to like their stamina meter doesn't go down or stuff
Mhm.
like that, right? Just like little areas where kind of the game systems clash is what I think of. And playtesting is kind of like the next level where it's like, okay, if we put this in front of a fan, basically, right, or somebody who isn't working on the game to make it, what is their experience? Like, are they do they get what this button combo does? Like we explained, maybe we explained that you could wall jump and maybe there's like whenever you could wall jump there's red paint on the walls and like maybe we tell them that at the beginning, they run through the level and they get to a place where there's red paint on the walls and they're like I don't know how to get up, right? Then we did a job, we missed something somewhere, right?
Mhm.
We didn't correctly convey, oh, this is how you kind of maneuver through the level. So yeah, those are kind of the three different levels. And that playtesting is more of like, okay, this is what we set out to do. Do people get it when they actually get the controller in their
Right.
hand?
And then do you as I guess as a dev, it, does it ever come across your mind like, oh, let me watch somebody? Would you? Hmm, let me think about what I'm trying to say before I say it.
I think I know what you're about to
Um,
say. But yeah.
do you ever watch like a live stream of a game that you've developed, and then see how somebody like that's completely fresh and green to the game interact and they're usually like almost like waiting with bated breath, like I hope that they get this, like you know what I mean, like
Right.
okay, this there's this thing here, I hope that they notice this
Right.
thing.
Right. Yeah. And personally, I think that's to me that's the real test, right? Like, because if I tell you exactly how to play my game, and then you go and you do exactly what I said, like, did you actually learn how to play my game, or did you just do what I said over and over again, right? And I think that's different versus like, I love putting a game in front of somebody and kind of explaining something to them, and then
Hmm.
understanding that like they're able to kind of see and I call it reading, but they're able to read the environment and then make the correct decision based off the stuff I've already taught them.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's really when fighting games are actually a great example of that, right? Like fighting games are all about teaching you lots of pieces, but the real magic happens when you have those people who are like really high level who are like, oh, I can do A, B, C, Y, and D, and kind of like your analogy about being in the kitchen, right? They
Yeah.
can cook up the first class meal based
Yeah.
off all the individual pieces, right? Um, and so, yeah, but yeah, I love to watch people do live gameplay. I think that's the most fun. I think that's the way you learn the most. I think it's how you can really understand if your game conveys the stuff you want it to. Um, it's also a way to like tell if somebody's actually kind of getting into, we call it a flow state in games, like, and I'm sure we've like all of us have probably played a game at a point where it's like I almost think about the times where I feel like I melded with my controller for a second, right? Like I'm not, it's almost like it's second nature, the stuff I do. Like the times where I get excited when I did something on a game, right? Like I go up for a dunk and I dunk on a character. I'm like, oh, I'm too good. I'm too good. You can't
Right.
stop me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's the goal, and being able to see somebody fall into that flow state where it's almost second nature, like that's where the magic happens to me. That's where a game really, that's almost to me where you as a player have connected the most with the game, and when you understand the game enough that you're able to really make the most of everything you understand about it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Like, have you met like any of the big names in the industry, like Miyamoto, Kojima? And
I've I've seen Kojima do a talk. I think maybe twice, but no, I've never met him. I've seen Kojima. Uh, I I like to joke sometimes. I've seen Miyamoto's Entourage, and that's kind of every Miyamoto story I've ever heard. Is like you'll hear about a bunch of dudes in black suits like mobbing a dude and just kind of walking down the hallway, and it's like, oh, that was Shigeru Miyamoto, right? Like he was in somewhere in that mass of dudes in black suits was Mr. Nintendo. I think probably the most famous game developer I met was Tim Schafer, who made Psychonauts, Grim Fandango. Um, oh man, I'm trying to think what was more. I mean, Psychonauts 2. His studio Double Fine has made a bunch of games.
Yeah.
And so he's probably the most popular, like, kind of game developer I met and like one of my game dev heroes. So that was really awesome. I've met people who have worked at like quite a few different studios, but yeah, Tim Schafer was like my big, like, oh man, it was cool to meet, somebody who looked up to reading gaming magazines growing up.
Were y'all able to have like conversations about the gaming industry and gameplay mechanics and things of that nature, or was it more like a quick meet?
It was a quick meet. It was like a conference, so I think he was on his way to like talk to GameSpot or something. But I caught him in the hallway, and I don't even. It's wild because I don't even remember fully seeing him. I felt like I saw him at the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Hey Tim," and I was like, "Can I have a picture?" And he took a picture with me, and I remember freezing up and basically being starstruck. And he took a picture with me, and he's like, "So hey, hi, I'm Tim," and I was like, I'm Jonathan. And he's like, cool, John. And I was just frozen basically. Right. And he's like, well, John, got to go have an interview. And yeah, but I was super starstruck and I'm super embarrassed now. Cause like, I would have loved to actually talked about him and told him like, your games were pivotal to me. Right. You inspired me. I made games because of you. All of that was in my throat. I didn't have, yeah. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun to meet him.
Have you had the opposite experience? Like a fan came up to you and said, "Hey, man, I played your game. I love it."
I haven't had that, but I have like I used to write on Quora a lot, like just kind of about game development. And sometimes I remember one time I posted about a game I made. Um and I did have like or a couple of times I posted about games I made and I might just talk about a game I made and I had people go, "Oh, I remember playing this game when I was a kid," which that was exciting. Or I made like this really small indie game and this guy like sent me this really kind message about how like this game we made inspired him to write a short story and that was a really cool thing to hear that like your work was able to inspire somebody to create something so yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that is pretty cool. Like somebody so inspired by a work, they're a fan, they love the universe, and
Yeah.
they're making their own little stories.
Absolutely.
I wish
Yeah.
I had that creative vibe, but I'm more like a mechanical thinker.
That's fair. I get it, and I think kind of like you asked Terrence earlier about like wanting to work in game development, and I quite like I feel like the people who work on games are obsessed. Like I feel like I'm like it's less because I sometimes I hate game development. If I'm honest, it's a lot of work. It can be really tedious. It's a lot of fine tuning small details that no one notices if they don't work on games. Um, but I also like feel compelled sometimes to make games. Like I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I wasn't making a game, um, and and so I think that's kind of like I think you're totally right. Like if you don't have that pool, I would stay away because it can be a lot of work, even as somebody who's obsessed who wouldn't choose to do anything else with my life sometimes I'm like, man, making games is why? Why do I do this to myself? Why do I keep doing this to myself? But yeah, yeah. But yeah, we're all different strokes, right? And games still need websites. So yeah. Yeah,
I
you
got a
got
question for you, Terrence. Like you knowing like what programming is like and seeing how intense game development is, does that make you like reevaluate how you talk about games online? And like if
Oh
you go on
yeah.
a message board, a lot of people like, oh man, this game is buggy. These devs
Oh
are so lazy.
yeah. All the time. Yeah. I had a very passionate, I'll call it passionate, discussion with somebody, where they were saying like, just like, what's taking so long? Just release Tekken 8 now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like, you don't understand how much time like it takes to not just release a game. Like you can't just copy and paste and release a game because it'll flop. Like people will
Right.
complain that it's just a copy and paste, so it's nothing new, blah 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 blah.
Right.
But in reality, like we think, you know, creating a React app can be difficult
Yeah.
and managing state and communicating with different MFPs and all this other stuff. You get into game dev and it's like, all right, we want to make a character. We want to give them all these moves. We have
Right.
the mocap. You have to, I don't know, import the mocap
Physics.
and physics, right? You have to get all that right. Then once you get all that right, then you have to introduce a battle system.
Right.
Then you have to make sure it's fair for all the characters that you've introduced.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you gotta hope that a character that you introduce isn't busted on day one,
Right.
right? And then you have to give it to players and have them play the game. And then you have to go back and take the feedback that you got. You see where I'm going? Like there's so much. You can't just take the game, release it, because then you'll just be like, oh, MK Mortal Kombat 1 it's just Mortal Kombat 11.5.
Right.
Nothing new. And it's like you guys don't understand like how much gray hair goes into
Yeah.
making a game.
Right.
Like when it takes years to develop, like it takes time and
Right.
budget and it takes time.
Who's the guy
Especially,
that developed Smash Brothers? Sakurai, I think that's his
yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah, Sakurai, yeah.
Like, he was getting sick because he was working so hard. Like,
Yeah, and fighting games are actually like, I think two games like I think I'd be cool if I never touched like ever making, like I think fighting games and MMOs, like because they're just
yeah,
so many points of failure, and like fighting games, like to your point, right, like it's not just it's making a character who has 50 moves and 50 moves that feel right and 50 moves that they can be composed into one cohesive style, and then it's making one character with 50 moves that can be one cohesive style that can fight 29 other people that have
Yep.
their own 50
Yep.
moves and cohesive styles,
Yep.
and making sure when I like that, the collision boxes hit correctly, and it's wild. Yeah, fighting games it's outrageous how much work goes into a fighting game. Yeah,
you can't really change too much if people go ballistic. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly. It's
yeah.
funny because like and again, not to make this about Street Fighter 6, I'm sorry. But like uh there are people asking for nerfs on certain characters and the game dropped June 2nd. It's going on 3 weeks now. And people are already asking, they're on Twitter. Oh, nerf this character. This character is broken. Do this, do that. Don't get me wrong. Like I've had my salty moments on Discord, and I'm just like, I don't like this character. This is frustrating. Blah blah blah. But the meta hasn't been figured out. Like I would let like wait 6 months. Wait until the first real competitive tournament is out, and wait for top 8. Like then you'll know when a character is busted or not. Because if 7 out of the top 8 characters are all one character, it's a problem.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
like
Right.
that's when you know you have a problem.
Right.
Like but before then, if you nerf too early and too often, it just dilutes the game.
Right.
It makes the game boring. Like
Right.
and I think that's where you as a game dev, and I'm sorry for holding the mic for so long, like as a game dev, you have to be able to manage who do you listen to, your consumer or your competitive scene. Like how do you balance this
Right.
enough to make it fun for everybody, you know?
Right.
Like if you have 30 or 40 characters and people are only playing 6, you got a problem.
Right.
And but you have to make it so that you don't throw the 6 characters that everybody's playing in the trash
Right.
and make everybody else viable.
Right.
It's tough. It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah, and I think people don't always remember, like people don't always appreciate how much trying to keep a community happy, right, and how challenging that is, right? Like because again, yeah, to your point, right, it's that like okay, what is the right move to make sure the game stays alive versus like who are our true fans, right? Who are our day ones that we want to make sure we don't turn away because they spend the most time with our game? And then how do we make sure we bring in new people? It's just a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And unfortunately, I think I got to bounce really quick,
No
but
problem.
it was dope to talk to both of you tonight. And
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Appreciate you stopping by, man. Definitely stop by anytime.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I look forward to catching up with you later.
All
all right,
right,
man.
man. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Peace.
Bye bye. So yeah, Terrence, what did you think about that Nintendo Direct? Like, do you feel like they were showcasing games you're interested in, or is it more like more of the same?
Well, they had their single player. I mean, they had their indie dev games, right? I think they had a free to play game that was online or something.
Hmm.
I forgot the name of it. I think it started with a P or something. But I wasn't too interested in that. I was surprised to see Batman on Arkham come to the Switch, but I mean, they're releasing it all in one collection, and I think that's actually a pretty cool idea
Mm.
to bring back like an older game and make it portable on the Switch, as long as it's not the PC port, because I heard bad things about it. I'm playing through it right now, but I hear that there's a couple of funky things going on with the PC port.
Mm.
Um, but besides the indie stuff, I did like Star Ocean 2 getting announced.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you
the
think about Super Mario Wonder?
it's a Mario game. I think my girlfriend will like it. Um, I haven't played a Super Mario game since Odyssey, so
Okay.
like the 2D Mario stuff, there's got to be a market for it. I guess it's out there. I'm more excited for the Super Mario RPG that coming back than I am a new 2D Mario. Um,
You kind
but
of grew up on the 3D Mario's, right? You never got into like the Super Mario World on Super
no,
Nintendo.
I mean I had an N64 and I had friends who had the SNES and Genesis and stuff, and
Hmm.
they had Super Mario World and like the collection, the um, on SNES, and I played it, but I never beat it. I never like sat down and actually beat a Super Mario game. The only Super Mario game I think I've beat is, well, can I even say I beat it? I think a friend of mine beat it for me. It was
Mm.
Super Mario 64, but I haven't like 120 started it though. The 2D looks cool. I'm actually excited for it. Yeah, I'm curious what they're gonna do with the Wonder stuff, like the alternate world that you go into, and like Mario can like stretch and he can turn into a. Oh, I think Kevin froze. Um, he can stretch. I think he can turn into an elephant. Like, I think it'll be pretty cool, like to see what they do with the that Wonder side of things. Hold on, let me see if I
Yeah.
can get Kevin back.
Think
Oh, you're lagging.
you
Kevin, you there? Kevin. Hello? No, guess not. Kevin? Oh, all right.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
All right. We're back.
Yeah, my computer was spazzing for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, that was weird. But
But yeah,
we're
I
talking
think.
about yeah, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, we were talking about what Super Mario.
Yeah, the one Super Mario Wonder. I was just saying that like I mean it looks cool. Like I want to see what they do with the whole wonder side of things, right? Cuz don't you go into a flower or something or well, I guess they call it wonders and then you it's like an alternate it's the same level but like a flip side version of that level
Hmm.
and then like I think they demoed that he can stretch now and he can transform into different stuff like an elephant and some other stuff. I think that'd be cool. See what they do with that. It'll be an interesting spin on Mario.
I think it's more for like older fans like who grew up on like the original 2D games. Cause like Lou, he's looking forward to it. But if you grew up on the 3D ones, I don't know if it necessarily appealed to somebody who grew up on the 3D ones.
Right.
I think it looks pretty good though. But like you mentioned, the Super Mario RPG, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Hmm.
Did you play the original on Super Nintendo?
I didn't, but I've heard good things about it, so it can't be that bad. It's got to be it's
Yeah,
got to be good.
you get to come into it fresh, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'll wait and see what they say about it. You know, um, I mean, I doubt it'll be bad. I doubt it'll be bad. I'm not putting that out there, but I'm just gonna wait and see what the consensus is.
They're talking about a rumor of like a Chrono Trigger remake, like a HD 2D. I mean,
Maybe,
I
maybe.
don't know. If they remake it, they need to like remake it like how they did Seven. I don't want like a little
Oh, you want to
remake.
pull from the ground up remake?
Yeah, you know what I heard was they're asking to possibly remake Final Fantasy VI.
They need to hold their horses, finish 9, finish 8, and then go back and do whatever other Final Fantasies they want to do. Like I feel like if they're gonna take that route, like do the route of Resident Evil. Right, Resident Evil has done the popular route, where it's like, all right, RE2 is super popular. Let's release that remake. All right, boom. Then they did RE3, which was like a rush job, which I heard it wasn't that good. Um, and then RE4 they took their time with, and that's a great game, right? It feels good. If they're gonna remake Final Fantasies, I think 7, 8, and 9 is where it's at. I know there's one on the SNES that's like super good or whatever, but I think 7, 8, and 9 is their moneymaker. That's just my opinion. I think if they're gonna remake Final Fantasies, 7, 8, and 9 are gonna be the most notable as far as like demographics is concerned.
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, like, after Seven is really when the series like really blew up. Like
yeah,
it was pretty big on part six was pretty big. Chrono Trigger was big, but seven is like when it became like like a Metal Gear Solid, like
yeah,
a franchise
yeah,
builder type of.
yep.
I think they're releasing the Metal Gear Solid collection on Switch as well.
Yeah, but that's just more of the not more of the
Like
same, but that's just the
four
it's just a port of the three games, right? It's nothing new.
Final Fantasy Seven was awesome. Yeah, did you think the remake did it justice though? I think he froze up here.
Who? What?
Did you feel like Final Fantasy VII remake did the original justice?
Um, I feel like they did a really good job, honestly, with the remake. They they brought it to life where where a lot of the parts of the game that just felt like not but they felt more like on PS1, like for the like getting into Don Quixote's club or whatever, right? Okay, you go, you dress as a girl, you do like they brought that whole scene to life. Like Cloud doesn't want to do it. He's like, oh, why do I have to do this? Like that whole like in how do I say it? In 789, you are like the narrator. You voice these characters, you give them
Mm.
inflections, you give them personality, you
So
give
it
them
made
your
it
own
more
personal.
alive to you, kind of like more immersive.
Yes, it's more, yeah, like in the remakes, they're more immersive. They take away that that having to emote and think of or not think, but it takes away that uh it it takes
So
away that
less imagination and
yeah,
more of experience.
it's you're pulling these characters out of my head and bringing them to life in front of me. Like the
Mm.
fact that Sephiroth feels like he's just messing with Cloud throughout this whole adventure. Like you get glimpses of that in the PlayStation 1, but I feel like it's very limited, not by just the platform, but by the technology at the time, right? But now you've got, I mean, just look at the game. I could talk about this for a long time, but like, but just look at the game, right? The game itself is only in Midgar. You don't even realize that you spent 50 some odd hours, 60 some odd hours in just one area, right?
How long was that in the original game? Like 20
It was
hours
it
or
was
10?
it was yeah, I want to say no more than 10 to 20 hours, possibly. 15 probably is the sweet spot. But like once you're done with that area, you're done. You get your ship and then you're out into the open world, right?
Yeah.
But you spent all this time in one area, right? The seventh heaven comes to life. Uh I only know about Second Life. Lord help me.
That's old school.
That's real old school. That's real. Is that still a thing?
I think so. It probably is. I
Probably
know.
is. With VR, it probably is.
Wasn't that
Uh,
like a PlayStation Home, kind of like a
second
MMO RPG, but more social?
Second Life, I think was still a thing. Virtual worlds. Wow.
Kind of like the metaverse before the
Before the
metaverse.
metaverse. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, what was I saying? Like, I just feel like they did it justice. I feel like the fact that they take the time to not just take what they've already made, a nice coat of paint on it, and then boom, you've got Final Fantasy remake. They've actually take the time to say, okay, what do we have and how do we make it better? And then you have to write each character. You've got to voice the characters. You've got to. There's so much things that make it just come to life. That I'm probably ready for another playthrough. I think that's what it is. I think I'm ready for another playthrough, Kevin. I
About to drop another
think I'm gonna drop
50 hours.
another 80 hours into it. I'll play it on hard mode though. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and
So
you know,
Lulu
like
said
what up?
programming and gaming go together. Is that what got you to wanting to be a programmer? Like, hey, I want to make my own game.
Yeah, I think so. Growing up, I played PS1, N64, SNES, a bunch of different games. I was a really obsessive gamer. Um, and and I just liked, I would pause like cartoons and I would pause video games and I would put a piece of paper onto the CRT TV and like press it onto the TV to try and make the image shine through, and I would try to draw
Oh
over. I
wow.
would try to trace over the characters and try to draw that way. I wanted to be an artist, but art wasn't really my thing. And I eventually stumbled onto computers and programming and stuff. So I guess gaming was the catalyst to that whole to where I am now. Um, but I don't think, do you need to game? Like, is it a requirement or a prerequisite? It's a nice to have, I would say, if you want to get into programming.
But
But
I think gaming created a lot of these industries that are like non-gaming now, like the headset VR headsets,
VR,
and
yeah,
kind of like the metaverse stuff existed in gaming before. Hours I spend online, I could write books, build schools, and save the world. Guilt keeps me away from video games.
Guilt? I don't. Hmm. Hours I spend online, I could write. Oh, you like in place of all the time you spend online, you could write books and save the world. Guilt keep it stream. Oh, because you would spend too much time playing the game.
They can be time sinks.
They
So I
can be
think,
time sinks, yeah. But you can make it a social. I think there are games now that are more so social, like Animal Crossing. Like that can be considered a time sink. But then you can give your code to somebody, and they can visit your island, and you guys can play co-op together. Um, I think what is it like? Even single player games for the most part, or to some degree, can be social. It can be social, right? Like just like me right now, I think I spent like 5 minutes or a good 5 to 10 minutes just spazzing over Final Fantasy VII, and I feel like as like because Kevin has played it too, right? Like we can sit here and talk about Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger and the other like Shadows of Paradise or Strangers of Paradise or whatever, and gush over these games because even though I have my playthrough and he has his playthrough, we can talk about our likes and dislikes of this game. It's almost like a movie, right? We could both watch the same movie and like different stuff about it or dislike different things about it.
yeah, I got an interesting question for you, man. If gaming didn't get you into programming, what kind of profession do you think you would be
I
in?
don't know, man. I really don't know. I think growing up, I think my backup profession would have been an electrician.
Okay.
I think because my dad is a carpenter by trade, and he's very much like a do it DIY type of guy, like building houses and fixing fixing electrical inside of the house, and I think I probably would have fell into that field if I didn't get into programming.
I'll probably be in like accounting, hating life, or like a financial manager or something, hitting you up like, "Hey guys, you need help with your finances." Like, do you ever get those messages now?
I don't. I
Oh,
I think I maybe once, maybe once I had somebody ping me about it, but I didn't really pay it too much attention.
man, I heard some guy was saying, I don't know, it was on Quora or something, that like as a FedEx driver, he usually makes over six figures and he can get up to like 200K. I forgot
As a
what kind of,
FedEx driver,
either FedEx or UPS. Like
really?
I don't, it's online, so sometimes people be like making,
That's
making
yeah.
stuff up. But
I wonder how many hours he has to work though.
yeah, I mean, if you could make 200K, would you do it? Like, okay, let's say 70K for about 25 hours after work.
25 hours of work for 70K?
Yeah, FedEx driving.
I don't know, man. Driving is pretty brutal in LA.
Yeah,
Like I I personally don't like it. I can't see driving being a long term profession that I would want to do. Like
yeah.
yeah, even though I sit on my butt and I type into a computer for like 8 hours a day, I don't know. Like
Yeah, I think
being a driver is gonna be stressful.
different people are just built for different things. I might be able to do short term driving, but I don't know. I couldn't. I know I couldn't do like getting in like a big rig and
Hmm.
driving like 12 hours every
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
I can barely handle like a 4 hour trip. I'm exhausted after that. So,
Exactly.
man, you know what's so crazy about driving across country is like the weather. Like, imagine like a tornado's going on and you're just in the middle of some like driving on the road that's in the middle of like a plain somewhere. Like there's no buildings around.
On daily entertainment, then I spend memorizing scripture. For most people, 90% of their sorry to cut you off. I was reading
Yeah, yeah, reading a comment.
Bonnie's message. For most people, 90% of their non-work time is spent online in entertainment. That's true. Not in being productive. I really try not to spend more time daily in entertainment than I spend memorizing script. That's true. Like I totally see where you're coming from. And I got a
Yeah.
great point. Let me just turn on the light real quick. All right, it was getting kind of dark, but I got a great point to that where like I'm noticing more so myself where I'm spending more time glued to my phone than I would like to, right? And
Mhm.
so what really put things in perspective for me was um like watching how much screen time I spent like on the phone. Like the phone, Androids and iPhones, they can tell you like how much time you spend on it, and what apps you're using the most. And I think out of an entire day, I think it said I spent 5 or so hours, 6 or so hours of my like 16-hour day uh, on YouTube. And I was like, wow, like 6 hours just of YouTube, whether it be on in the background or me like physically watching it.
Yeah.
It's like that's a lot of time.
It's like
And
the new TV.
yeah, and so today I uninstalled it. Like I
Mm.
removed the app from my phone, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm
I think
trying to
you'll be
disconnect.
back.
I'm trying to disconnect.
I worked at a FedEx warehouse like 14 years ago. It was my second job part time, and man, I was getting paid around 20 an hour. I remember hearing that drivers were getting paid, and this was 14 years ago. Yeah, the drivers. That's who was really making the money. Um, don't they have like a good union, something like that? I think that's how they're really able to make that money. I'm surprised there's no like programmers union, but I guess people make enough money in this profession. They're kind of like, yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me, Terrence?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. I think like my dad was a truck driver for a little bit. He stopped now, but they make some pretty good money. I won't lie. Like truck drivers make a decent pair of change, but you're on the road a lot. That's
Yeah, same with my dad. He was a truck driver, man. It was that's a stressful job, man. I can appreciate just having a job where I can sit at home and type on a computer all day.
yeah. The only stress that you have is release days and bugs and unexpected bugs. So you just
Yeah, I mean,
try to
it can
mitigate
be,
those as much as possible.
it can be stressful, man, especially if you're, at one of these big companies and you're working on an app that, like millions of people are
Yep,
using, and
yep,
your bug is causing a company to
yep.
lose millions of dollars.
That's why I don't. That's one reason why I can't work at one of these top tier tech companies.
Oh yeah, I'm good on that. Like
Just
the tens of thousands ain't worth it. All that kind of stress.
yeah, I'm good. I want to be able to. I want to be able to put my head down at night and go to bed and just be done. Like I
Right.
don't want to have to think about did I push up code correctly? Did what if what if this went wrong? What if that went wrong? Like yeah, no, I'm okay. No, thank you.
Man, so have you been like getting out like a lot more, trying to stay less digital?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to stay less digital. I've uh slowly but surely I'm just like reducing my screen time, and then I'm noticing that I have this itch for some type of distraction, like, and I don't know what it is, but it's
You just need
like
something
I'm not.
playing in the
It's like I
background.
need something, and I'm like I wasn't like this before high speed internet, before a
Yeah.
smartphone. I didn't have this compulsion to just have some type of stimuli, whether it's Instagram or something on in the background or whatever. And so I'm trying to sort of uh,
Wean yourself off of it.
wean myself off
Yeah.
of like always being on my phone, and even like things like like I would say, okay, I need my phone to study Duolingo. Like, oh, I don't need that. I don't. I can sit down at a computer, go on Duolingo.com, and do my Spanish lessons. Okay, cool. I don't need that app. All right, I need it to read scripture or whatever. All right, well, I can. I'm sure there's a website version of the app that I'm using that I can just log on to, read the daily scripture, and then be done with it. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Call it
there's
digital addiction.
yeah, it's like when you make an app for everything, it just means that, at least in my case, it just meant that I give myself one more reason to just tap on my phone and not be present.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to turn my phone into something that will assist me rather than
It's like you
uh
merge with the machine almost. Like,
yeah, yeah, for lack of better words, like something, it's like something that I can use versus something that just takes time away from me, because 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours out of a 16-hour day on YouTube, that's a lot of time. Like, what can I be doing with that time? That's that's the point that I'm trying to get at. It's like I don't know if I'll get to zero, but it's worth a shot to try and
yeah.
get to that point.
So like, do you see yourself just like being out and about more, like visiting places and dealing
Yeah,
with people
yeah,
in person?
yeah. Like just being more present, being more present, and being able to talk to people. Um, because I have a habit of just sort of retreating to my phone. If I don't know anybody in a certain, if I go to a party or if I go to an event and I don't know anybody, I can immerse myself in my phone, and I don't have to interact with anybody. But then I lose out on the experience, of being present with
Yeah.
and being out and about. I can just be on my. I could have been on my phone at home. I could have been on my phone wherever. Why would I go somewhere to be on my phone? It's like so I'm going to these bi-weekly Street Fighter events, right, in California,
Yeah.
and I'm not driving an hour out just to be on my phone and not interact with people, not talk to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like you lose out on those memories, you lose out on those
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah. You don't really remember, like, I just sat there and talked to somebody online like that,
Yeah, yeah,
like, no old school, they had the arcades where,
yeah.
you picture yourself being in there,
Hmm.
have put in the quarter against the little arcade machine,
Yeah, yeah,
like Lou mentioned, a lot of people are going to the old school phones where, it's not a mini computer, it's just like a
yeah.
phone.
I've thought about it. I've thought about that, but I still have a need for like email and a couple of other things.
There's actually a restaurant out here where they take your phone like before you go in,
Really
so it
nice.
kind of forces everybody to be in a moment and not in digital space somewhere. I think that's a cool concept.
Yeah, because it's just you don't realize how addicted you are until you start to like undo a lot of the stuff that you've grown accustomed to doing. And you're like, oh wow, I'll just use my phone for this. I'll just use my phone for that. It's like what don't I use my phone for now? And it's like, wow, I use my phone for
Yeah,
everything: texting, talking, email, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. The list goes on. And it's like, do I need that? No. Do I need that? No. Don't get me wrong. Like there are a couple of things, a couple of apps that I still use from time to time, but they're purely for social purposes. Like I have an Instagram, but I don't really like post on it that much. I really just use it for the as a messenger app. Um, I don't use Facebook as much anymore. Like yeah, I have a YouTube channel, but I've got ways around that as far as like not using the app on my phone, like Like I'll still have I'll still have access to it on my computer. But to me, I feel like the internet should be something that you go to, you use it, and you put it down. Like having access to it 24/7 all the time is just, what did Kanye say? No one man should have all that power. Like it's too much.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
they're
too much
jacking
effort.
everybody. We're already in the Matrix, like a light version of it, like a
It's
fantasy world, pretty much. Like, especially when once AI really starts taking over, if everybody's on a computer consuming the quote unquote content, you even know if it's real. Like, how many of these articles we're reading
hello.
are AI?
Hold on, you're breaking up.
Gen-
Oh, he's freezing. You should try the old school Nokia phone. I'll check it out if I can get one. If I can get an old school Nokia phone, Nokia C 2100, 200. See, that's a smartphone too. Oh, Kevin's breaking up. We should stop calling it a phone. Yeah, that's why they call it a smartphone, right? It's a phone, but it does so much more. It's smart now. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting time once AI really gets to a point where like deep fakes are just gonna be really hard to tell from actual photos, and then AI voices just get really really
So
good.
it's almost
It's gonna be really tough to differentiate between the two. Kevin, you there? His computer completely froze. Yeah, I think. I don't know. Oh, all right. Now I'm alone. It's a one man show. Um, what are we talking about? AI. Well,
yo.
Kevin,
Okay, here we go.
hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. I don't know what happened, man. My computer just froze up, and
You all right? You
yeah,
can
a lot
carry
of
this, Terrence.
connection.
Well, the one man show is postponed for now. Kevin is back.
Yeah.
That might be a
Well,
sign we should
what
wrap
I
up
miss out on?
this episode. Nothing much. We were just talking about for briefly, like not calling phones, not calling smartphones phones, and then we touched on deep fakes and I don't know, deep fake voices, I guess, or is
The
deep fakes just the blanket term?
phones are pretty much computers now, like just
Yeah.
handheld computers.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I think it's a good point to end it on.
We should. Yeah.
Computers spazzing out and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in this time. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you guys next time.
All right, peace.